All right, so I wanted to show you a little bit of the territory ahead. We're going to try to get there as quickly as possible. And this is one of the exercises from day 3 of Summer Web Boot Camp. And you can see how Caleb explains all this if you go to the Summer Web Boot Camp videos, and you can find those at youtube.com, Todd McLeod. So I'm just going to do YouTube, Todd McLeod. And there is user Todd McLeod. And go to my playlists. I mean, maybe you're already here because you're, I don't know, how do you get to my playlist? Right there. That's how the normal person gets there, not through the channel manager. And show, view 30 or plus more, and like, you know, web components, day 2, day 3. So in here, right, these first 3 videos right here are going to talk about Gravatar. And so what does Gravatar do? And this is just a preview, and I want to kind of show you why we're laying a foundation. And we're learning, you know, just sort of the fundamentals of the language, and I kind of am really trying to take people into good depth about how Go works and how you could find answers in the documentation or the language spec or effective Go or other resources, so that when we get to all this stuff, it's like, okay, I know how to kind of read the docs and research it and figure out what exactly os.org does. But here's a little program, and it's going to create a basic web page. And that web page is going to make a request to an API, and it's going to pull some data back and you know, show an image. I don't know. Maybe I made that sound more complicated than what it actually does. But get rid of this file because I was just testing it. So first time I'm going to run this, I'm going to enter these commands right there. Go run main.go because that's the file, but then I'm going to pass an argument at the command line, and that argument is going to be my email. Dang, I just made that available to everybody in the world. Please don't abuse it. And then that at the terminal or whatever, that little bracket means output the results to index.html to a file. And so I'm going to output those results to a file. So it's going to run all this code and output the results to a file. So I'm going to run it. Just ran. And then I look, and it created that file. And that file's right there. And if I look at this file, that is all that's on this file. That's it, right? So, you know, the interesting thing there is what we created using Go is that image tag on line 8, right? When we put in a particular hash in there. So when we preview this page, it goes to Gravatar and it gets a picture of me and shows it on the web page. And so just looking at the code on that, I thought you guys would be like, wow, that's totally cool. Wow. That's totally cool. So Gravatar, you could read about Gravatar or whatever, but it's basically, you know, a place where, how would you describe Gravatar, anybody?
Well, it's a common way of providing avatars.
There we go. I like it.
So you're calling the API to go out and say, match that email with that photo and bring you back the photo associated with that email.
Yeah, so I guess a lot of different people have accounts at Gravatar. You will have an image, and so if we wanted to get an avatar image for users, we could check their email to see if they have an avatar image at Gravatar, and then use that image if they haven't already uploaded an image at our site, thus saving them a step.
Yeah.
Right? They don't have to upload a picture that they've uploaded 3 bazillion other places. They don't have to also upload it at our place. They can manage their avatar at one location.
Do they have the right to not let you upload the image? I mean,
Gravatar?
it sounds like you can, if you have their email, you can get their image.
Right.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
Some places they might not want to put their image.
Right, like my my white supremacy hatred site, having a bunch of anybody's emails that I could find from Gravatar, and putting them. I'm joking. I don't affiliate at all with that. I just was trying to think of the most rude, outlandish example. It was that or porn. My wild night porn site. And I have all the teachers' web avatars from City College as users. That'd be interesting. Create accounts for them. Look, their pictures are there. It's the web.
But seriously, I mean, is this a privacy issue?
I don't know. We're not worried about privacy. All we care about our code.
What?
It's a part of the service that when you sign up, they tell you this is what it can be used for, so that you understand it's
So the preview I want to give you, awesome, thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to be like, okay, enough talking from you. The preview I wanted, I hope that didn't come out that way. I'm a little sleep deprived, so apologies for any social improprieties beforehand. First thing I want to do is you search Gravatar API, and then you click creating the hash, and we'll talk about what the hash is. And it's not something that derives from cannabis, but we create the hash, and we get a hash, and then you also have this link down here, how to request an image. And so you can request an image, and this is the information about request an image. But those are the 3 pages you need to sort of understand Gravatar. And then the code for this is right here. And we're using a couple different packages, but let's just take a look and see what it's doing. And this is just a preview of things to come. So we have our main function, and we have a variable email, which is of type string. And we're setting that equal to os.args1. Which is kind of interesting, right? And so we could go look at the format packet or the OS package, and which website would we go to look at the documentation for the OS package? Okay, so Golang would be one, so we could do Golang OS, and we could read the OS package there, and it's going to be there because it's part of the Go official documentation. What's the one I like to use? Read my mind. Godoc.org, and then what's the rest of the path? For OS, just the OS package, just OS. That's all you need, right? And it brings up the OS package. And so we could read about the OS package, but it's basically operating system stuff. And so, get environment, right? We could get environment variables. Clear env, clear environment, interesting. Make dir, that's kind of cool, all right? A bunch of file things. New file, open, things with files, get file info, link here. But if I'm looking for args, right, and I'm looking at this index, I don't see args anywhere in the index. But then I come down here and I find variables, and then here's the variable args. And it's of type slice of strings. Args holds the command line argument starting with the program name. Right? Oh, that's pretty cool. And so my first argument here, OSArgs, when I ran this in the terminal, I put in go run, and the first argument is the program name, so that's main.go. So if I put 0 here, I would be referencing setting email string equal to OSArgs, and that 0, and that would be main.go. But since my second arg is there, then email is now equal to Todd McLeod, because that's the second argument that was put in. So that's kind of a cool deal. And if we click on this, we could, see like, where does it take me? Args equal runtime args. Args holds the command line, right? So it brings me to some args stuff there, package OS. So I did that, got there by holding down command. And then the next line in main is gravatar hash is equal to get gravatar hash. And so we have that function get gravatar hash, and it takes email. So we pass in email here, so the argument is email, and then it's received by the parameter email. And those variable names could be completely different names, right? I could have called everything here, right, my email or something like that, and it didn't have to be the same as those down there. And you could change things in many places at once in WebStorm, which is cool. And the way you do that is by you click on whatever you want to select and Control G, and just keep pressing G while holding down Control, and it takes you to the next instance of that. Or I think it's Command Control G selects them all instantaneously. You want to change stuff all at once. It's kind of cool. So email, the first thing that we do is we use something from the strings package and trim space and to lower. So those are pretty self-explanatory. And we could look at the strings package to see what else we could do with the strings. But oh, cool. We're using packages, things that are already written to help us work with our code. So we're trimming all the space, and we're making it all go to lowercase. And then the next thing is we're using something called md5.new. Right? What exactly is that? And that's going to allow us to start talking about hash. And so let me just see here if I go to md5 and see if that brings it up. Not found. So I'm going to type in md5 over here. And that's interesting because it's like md5. But look at this. Up here, it's crypto MD5, right? So even though I refer to it as MD5 in my code, the package name is crypto MD5. So if I take crypto MD5 and drop that in there, brings up MD5, not a very long package. Package MD5 implements the MD5 hash algorithm as defined in RFC 1321. That sounds like Star Wars robot stuff. I have no idea. You know, like R2D2, C3PO, RFC 1321. And the reason we need to do this is because Gravatar asks us here, trim leading and trailing white space from an email address, force all characters to lowercase, so we just did that. MD5 hash the final string. They've asked us to MD5 hash the final string. So what is hash? What is a hash? I think, yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, what is it?
Like, conceptually?
Yeah, how do you describe a hash? I've got 3 definitions. I don't know about you guys, but let's go for it, or Bob. Yeah. What's a hash? How would you describe a hash?
It's a unique set of letters and numbers that defines a combination of, say, the email address and an algorithm that's used to convert it into a number or a code that, unless you know both, you can't decipher the original email out of it. But when you use it, the algorithm is known so they can pull it out when necessary.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Rio?
Oh, that's good. I like that.
All right, so when I think of hash, I think of Amsterdam and people smoking hash that's made from weed.
What's your second reference?
That's one thing that comes to mind, just so you know. Well, I just want to make sure I got that joke across.
Good.
It seemed like people missed it the first time. And then the second thing I think of a hash is like, you know, like Klein's Diner out at 99 in Herndon, which I don't think exists anymore, but you get eggs and toast and hash. And a hash is just like all this meat and potatoes chunked up together into a big pile, right? And that's kind of what computers do when they create a hash. They take a whole bunch of input and they just chunk it up into a certain pile. And that pile, if you put in the input, the same input, that pile is always going to be the same. So if I put in, anytime I put in my email address right here like this, I am always going to get that hash. So it's kind of like a SHA-1 checksum, which we saw when we download the program, when we run the checksum. Hey, is it the same? So I could take an email address and then run it through the hash, and I will always, for that same email, I always get the same hash. That's my understanding. I have 90% pretty high probability that that's certain, pretty high certainty on that one. But, you know, if you read differently, let me know. And so if I send that hash over the web, right, I'm not sending somebody's email address over the web. And when Gravatar receives that hash, they've already hashed all the email addresses. So they just look, hey, do we have this hash in our database? Yeah, here it is. Here's the image associated with it. So we never had to pass an email address through the wide open dark alleys of the web where somebody might be able to grab it. We're just passing the hash.
Can anybody grab that hash and still
I don't
figure out the email?
maybe, yeah, but I don't know if that's the place where I had uncertainty is if it's like a public-private key thing. I don't know if you could unwind a hash. So that's something we could read about and then maybe come back Thursday.
Is hash unique to Gravatar? Is MD5?
No, MD5 is not unique to Gravatar.
So,
But you know, like how many iterations of different email addresses do I have to try until I get that number? Like, So the varying levels of security, right? Like anything could probably be cracked if you have the NSA working with you.
Well, because it's actually generated on hash, they already have that file. It's like basically you saying like down the line. Well, what does that relate to? That's basically how it is. There has to be a file that has to relate to it for you to actually double check, and they would have it already. So
yeah, it's
that's
just,
more secure.
I'm not saying it's not an increase in security, but it would seem that anybody who really wants to get into it would just be able to crack the MD5 hash algorithm and use it.
Yeah, they tell you the hash is just a one-way form of encryption. So if you want to test, if you want to try to crack it, then you have to guess it and then convert it to a hash and see if it matches what it's saying.
Yeah.
You can't get the
Yeah.
original from that.
You need the
It's just
Yeah.
one way.
Yeah, I don't think you could get the original from the hash.
Unless you try every possibility. So like
Yeah.
there's like a program you could get on Linux or Mac called Crunch, and it'll help you generate a word list and generate like every possibility if you want. And then if you wanted, you could make like a program in Go or Python to compare the hashes, and it'd be pretty easy. It'd be a pretty short program just to try each possibility as a hash and then compare the hashes and see if they're the same.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. It's the original program that you crack.
Unless you got like a whole bunch
You don't try to crack the hash. If you're trying to break into it, you would try to crack the program to mix the hash.
Yeah.
That's where you.
I love all the inquisitive minds and thinking about how's this stuff work, because that's really the place where learning occurs. And it's like, hey, I'm curious about that. Let's do a little reading in it, and come back and hey, check out what I found. So here to use it, there's an example of how to use MD5. That's what we're asked to use. And so I look at this example and it says, okay, MD5 new, and assigns it to a variable h. And that variable h, it looks like, this right here gets put into h maybe, and then we do an h sum nil. And what does sum do? Sum takes a slice of bytes, right, and returns MD5 checksum of the data. And so that's, fairly, there's a slice of bytes. So the slice of bytes is data. So this looks like this takes this and turns it into a slice of bytes, because here data is my slice of bytes, MD5 sum. Now data is being passed in there. Here I'm passing in no slice of bytes. H is my new MD5, and here MD5 is right there. Kind of interesting. So that, you just come in here and you look at this stuff and you think about it and play with it. And so if we take a look at that and run it, we could click run and we get this, right? Well, we could also try things at different points in here. We could play with this. So we could do a format print line h and just see what does that give us. Where's my run button right there? And print line h gave me a memory address and then a whole bunch of zeros, right? And so looks like it made a slice, and that slice was initialized, but everything was initialized just to 0. And so I could also try print f and then drop in here quotes and %t and then just a new line escape character, and I could run that and it'll tell me the type, and it says, hey, it's an MD5 digest. Okay, so MD5 digest. So this is an MD5 digest, and then I do an IO write string, and it takes h, and the fog is getting thicker. So I'm like, okay, what's godoc.org IO, and I could look for a write string. And write string takes a writer and a string and returns an int and an error. Writes the contents of the string s to w, so string s to w, which accepts slices of bytes. So it looks like this thing here, slice of bytes, writes to there. Write string will write from, sorry, I'm switching to the wrong place. Takes a writer and a string. So this is my writer, and this is my string. All right, so the H is a writer. It implements the writer interface, and we'll learn about that. And then we have H sum nil. Anyhow, I don't necessarily understand all that that's doing, right? Like just if I dug into the Go source code, I might be like, I don't quite understand how they wrote the Go program, right? Like there's definitely tons of code in there where I'm like, beyond my capabilities. But I do understand that, okay, I got a hash, and this is the example, and this is how I use it. And then, when I do that, implement that right here, Gravatar hash, right? I get my new MD5, and then I do IO write string and H and email, and then I do my H and sum nil, and that gives me my final bytes. And then hex encode to string. Well, how would I have known to do this? Hex encode to string. Well, here we've got printf %x. Now we're going to learn about format verbs here today, and one of the things we'll learn is what those %x things mean. So if I look for %x, here it's base 16, hexadecimal, right? So that's what that was doing right here, was making that hexadecimal. And so when I see it, it comes out as hex. And so to make mine hexadecimal here, there's another package hex, which encodes to string and encodes that stuff to string. So that's all a little bit like, whoa, that could be a lot, right? But the foundation we're laying, and I'm just previewing this, is so that when we get to these things, it's like, oh, okay, well, I could start looking at that and pulling that apart and seeing what it does. And so basically I get that hash. And so now that I have that hash, I could come in and do just a print line, and I could create a string with backticks, which keeps the spaces. And so there are the backticks, and it's basically this whole string, and then concatenate right here in the image tag the hash, and then there's my HTML page. And then output that and open that page, and it'll show whatever email address got entered. So just for example, let me come down to my terminal. Just guessing.
Now you got mine.
This is this email address is I don't know what to say. And let's just see what happens. Hey. Buzz. All right, so that's just a little bit of a preview of, hey, we actually used Go to create a web page, and do some logic and build up some strings, which we dumped into a web page and looked at. So that's actually day 3 of Summer Web Boot Camp, the morning, day 3 of the morning. Holy cow, dude. We lickety-clicked in boot camp. So I don't know if that's a word, lickety-clicked, but it is if you only got 5 hours of sleep. All right, so we're going to step back now and keep laying the foundation so that when we get up to that stuff, we understand it. How many people, oh, I got pretty much most of that. Like, yeah, you had to talk me through it, but okay, I'm getting it. Going in the docs, looking the stuff up, show hands. How many people got that? How many people are like, whoa, okay, light speed, baby? All right, cool. I think we're doing good. You guys are going to get it.